Hi everyone, it's Vicki and welcome to my channel, and today I have a Q&A. Thank you all who offered up questions when I asked for them a week ago. So I've collected, I think I have a dozen. I figured that was a good number. Don't want it to go too long. So let's get started. Let's see. I put them on note cards so I didn't have long pieces of paper. And I was able to jot down a couple notes. I tried not to think about them too much, a little spontaneity, but I did put down a couple talking points on some of them. Let's start with some of the personal questions, I guess. From, who's this from? I can't read it. Cross Kids? Something. When I printed it off, it's real small. So it says, I've seen your quilty box videos. How and when did you learn to sew? I was forced to learn to sew, although I'm thankful now, very grateful, in 9th grade home economics class. And I remember at the time thinking how sexist it was that I had to take home ec and the boys took shop, either auto shop or wood shop. And then the girls took sewing one semester and cooking the other. But, you know, I hope they still teach that in school, because that's kind of where I learned a little bit about cooking, and that's where I learned about sewing. I did not learn from mother and grandmother who both sewed, didn't learn to cook from them, so it was the school system, I have to say. So kudos to the school system in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Okay, next question is from Lisa. And she asked, what would your ideal day include? And of course, what would you be wearing? I thought about that one just a little bit tonight on the way home. And I was thinking, I've had some very nice days, you know, going to concerts, traveling, sightseeing. But really when it boils down to it, I think a perfect day would be having some friends and family over in the backyard, a pool party, cookout, you know, barbecue, just hanging around the outside in the backyard all day, with watermelon and, you know, ribs, and playing in the pool, maybe having some table games like dominoes or something, just relaxing, that sort of day with just family and friends, so that it's casual, no stress, you know, people pitch in, that sort of thing. I think that's really a perfect day because it's fun but casual, no pressure, relaxing. I think that's probably one of my favorite days, when I've had friends and family over in the backyard. What would you wear? Of course, that would be a swimsuit and a really nice cover-up and flip-flops. That's what it would be. And see, I wouldn't have to worry about leaving my dogs alone and driving, anything. So anyway, that's my answer to that. And thanks for asking that question and making me think about it, because originally I thought, oh, you know, symphony, museum, and then I started thinking about it and I realized, no, it's the simple things, really, that would make it a perfect day. So next one, I had a couple of questions on marriage. The first one was, how did you meet your husband? And how long have you been married? I love watching your vacation posts and how happy you look. Yes, we do enjoy our time together on vacation, and we have a good time together. We have a lot in common, so that helps. But, well, the way I met my husband is we both worked together. Well, let me rephrase that. We both worked for the same company. He worked in the Anchorage office, and I worked in the Seattle office, so we did not work together. And when I first met him was in Barrow, Alaska. Now, we weren't, you know, friendly. We just were acquaintances. What do you call that? Associates. Yes, we were associates. But that's where we physically met in person. We had talked to each other on the phone. He managed stores in rural Alaska, and I was in the buying office in Seattle. So that is how we met. So the second marital question is, oh, I'm sorry, the last one was from Dory DeCosta. Thank you, Dory. The next one is from A.M. Owens. I have a couple from her. And it says, where did you get married and what did your dress look like? Well, I still have my dress. I can show it to you. And I'll share some pictures. But to answer your question, we were married on the island of Kauai in Hawaii, at the Cocoa Palms. The Cocoa Palms got pretty decimated by Hurricane Inike, I think in 1991. We were married in 1987. And it's been laying in ruins since then. I don't know if it's been demolished. I checked on it maybe 2 years ago, and it was still in ruins, but somebody had, I believe, stolen the big, beautiful carved wood doors that go into the resort. It was a very old style resort at the time we went. It was looked like something from maybe the 60s. In the decor, it was very old style Hawaiian tourists looking in the rooms, like the big clamshell, huge clamshell sinks, and Eddie's wanting some attention over here. So anyway, that's where we went. It was kind of a quiet hotel at that time by then. And that's where we got married and stayed. We literally got married at our hotel. They had a grass hut. Well, half hut, half wood, I should say. Half grass at the top and then wood at the bottom. And it was just us. We didn't invite anybody. We'd both been married before. So I wanted to keep it simple, and I didn't want a whole big white dress and the whole thing, since I had already had that. And so had he. So, well, he didn't wear a white dress, but so the next questions are kind of questions of geography. I kind of tried to get these questions all lined up together in what seemed, similar. These are questions of geography. And someone asked, let's see, Trailer Breaks asks, what state do you live in? I do live in Florida. I'm not from Florida, but that's where I live, and I've lived here since 2001. And then it says, you mentioned your work. What kind of work do you do? Well, I don't often share my work. I'll start by saying I work for a municipality. I don't often share my work because I have a job. When I tell people what I do, I have the kind of job that elicits negative response sometimes. And it's not like I do anything bad, but it's a job where people will complain to you. And so I kind of don't share it a lot. But basically, I am responsible for the billing of utilities, water, sewer, stormwater, garbage, reclaimed water, recycling, that sort of thing, for 90,000 accounts. And it's obviously not just me who does that. There's, whole meter reading group. There's our billing group that I supervise. So don't anybody write in and say, why is my water bill so high? Or I'll regret having answered that question from Sleeper 234. So that's what I do, but keep it to yourselves. Don't tell anybody, any of my neighbors or people around. So the next question about geography is, have you always lived in Florida? And the answer to that is no. I was born in Arkansas. And have you traveled overseas? What do you sew? Love your blogs. Well, thank you, Angela Spodek. I hope I'm saying that right. I don't know. I'm not good at vowels. Being raised in the South. So, like I said, I was born in Arkansas. I've lived in New Orleans. I've lived in Seattle area. I've lived in New Mexico, Alaska, and now Florida. And I've lived in Arkansas 2 different times, plus every summer, because my parents were divorced, and my dad lived in Arkansas, and I stayed the summers with him. I lived in New Orleans. I lived in New Mexico, each of those one time. I lived in Seattle 3 different times, in the Seattle area. I lived in Alaska for 15 years in 3 different places in Alaska, and I have spent summers and extended periods, but not permanent residence, in San Diego, and then also in Portland, Oregon. So I guess quite a bit of time on the West Coast, the Pacific Northwest. But I'm kind of Southern at heart, but I kind of think like someone from the West Coast, I guess. And as far as have you traveled overseas? I haven't boarded a plane and flown overseas. Most of my, what I would call overseas, off of the North American coast, have been on cruises. I've been to Canada and Mexico, and I've driven to Canada and Mexico, and I've also flown, like I flew to Cancun, and I flew to, don't know what the town is in Ontario where Niagara Falls is. Maybe it's just called, I think it's called Niagara Falls. And I've also driven through Canada from Seattle to Anchorage. So I drove the Alcan Highway in 1987. I'd have to look that up to know if I'm answering that correctly. But as far as overseas, no. But I have been through the Caribbean because we live in Florida. We take advantage of good prices to Florida residents on cruises. Nice vacation, all, you know, inclusive kind of thing. So I've been to, other than Mexico, and I have been to been on the Canada New England cruise. And I've been to Grand Cayman, Turks and Caicos, Cuba, boy, am I missing? I can't remember. The Virgin Islands, St. Thomas, St. Martin, Cozumel, that's Mexico. Oh, Honduras and Guatemala. Funny story about Guatemala. I had often thought of when I retired, maybe going to do volunteer work, Peace Corps, something similar, maybe in South America, you know, because Mexico and South America, Central America. Anyway, I thought, you know, doing some work there, you know, and because they're our neighbors, they're connected. And I went to Guatemala, and I went on an excursion that took us a couple hours into the jungle to go see an archaeological site and these fabulous steles. But anyway, it was so hot. At the very, very beginning of April, I said, no, that's out. I'll have to be doing my volunteer work in Alaska, Canada, Iceland, something more in the lines of that. So, but let's see what else. Oh, what do you sew? I mostly do quilting, and I haven't done a lot of it, piecing, and I do miniatures. Haven't done a lot of it lately, sadly, and but it's not. But it's something I'll pick up again when I have more time. Let's see, you know, just an assortment of crafts. I mean, it gets. I tend not to stick with things a long time. I'll do one thing for a while, one thing for another period of time. But the one I've stuck with really is quilting. So thank you, Angela, for asking that question. Let's see. Then I had a question, or questions about, I'm going to call it the inner Vikki. And these are all from A.M. Owens, who asked the deeper questions. And I'll just read all three of her questions. They are, do you have any phobias or pet peeves? Have you ever seen a UFO? And what is your spirit animal and why? So let's start with pet peeves and phobias. I'm not diagnosed with any phobias, although I have self-diagnosed myself as having claustrophobia because I just don't really like to be confined. I feel it a little bit in an airplane, but I'm able to just, you know, talk myself out of it. The only time I've ever had a little bit of a panic over it was when I lived in Kodiak, Alaska. Every July there would be some sort of military ship of some sort come into town around the 4th of July. And so one year it was a nuclear submarine. It was the USS New York City. It was about to be decommissioned shortly after that. And so they were giving tours. So we waited in line for a long time, maybe a couple hours even. And it was raining and windy. It was miserable. And a friend from Seattle was visiting, and so we waited there. We went down. When we got on the sub, you go down these, I call them ship's ladders, and that's exactly what it is, just straight up and down. So go straight up and down that ladder. We land in a little landing area. I can still see the sunshine above me. Well, I can still see the gray clouds above me. And so we step out of that little compartment into another compartment, which I can still kind of see the daylight, but it's a small little area. I don't remember what it was. And then there was the big room, which was almost completely filled all the way around with equipment and like something in the middle, which I think is a periscope stuff because everybody's looking in it. And I walked in that room. I just stepped in that room, and it hit me. And you know, even though it's a big room, it's so filled with stuff, and then all the people on the tour, I couldn't do it. I turned around, ran out, said nothing to my husband and my friend from Seattle. I just left. And here I am trying to go up this ship ladder while they're bringing so many people down because they took in so many people at a time. And I'm so panicked. I'm basically saying, get out of the way. And they were kind and let me through, and I got out. So, and then my husband and my friend are kind of walk around, and they kind of look, they go, where's Vikki? And because it's a small town, people know who everyone is, kind of, and they said, she left. She ran up those stairs so fast. So that's my experience with claustrophobia. And as far as pet peeves, I'm pretty much a live and let live person. I may not agree with what people do or things that happen, but I have to say there is one that kind of grinds my gears, and that is people who litter. That is a pet peeve. And in fact, if you litter, I'm not going to be your friend. There's two parts to why that bothers me. One is you're kind of like saying, I'm too good, somebody else can pick up after me. The rest of the world can pick up after me. There's that component of it. But more importantly, it's kind of like saying, I don't care about the environment. You know, I mean, what could happen? You could, some animal could digest something or ingest something, poison, I don't know. But anyway, that's my pet peeve, is litter bugs. I will absolutely drop you as a friend if you're a litter bug. So, have you ever seen a UFO? Well, I don't know. Maybe I have, maybe I haven't. I've seen lots of things that I don't know what they are, but I think it would be a stretch for me to call them a UFO because somebody else might be able to identify them. I know one time when my husband and we were in Anchorage. It was late at night because we'd been to something, and we were going down one of the major streets like C Street or something, and all of a sudden something came out of the sky just, burning down, and I don't know, it was weird. We didn't know what it was. It was kind of almost frightening, except it wasn't right by us, but it was definitely concerning. We're like, what the heck? Morning's paper. If it wasn't Sunday morning's paper, it was Sunday morning's news. But anyway, it turned out that it was a Russian satellite that fell out of the atmosphere. I don't really understand spacey things. I'm not going to pretend I do. But anyway, somehow it got loose, it fell into the atmosphere, and burnt up and came down and crashed somewhere in Alaska, near Alaska, somewhere in the Turnagain Arm, Anchorage area. So, hey, Eddie. So that just kind of says, for me it was a UFO, but somebody else was able to identify. So I don't want to say I've seen a UFO, because anything I see that I can't explain doesn't mean somebody else can't. And then the last question in this group is, what is your spirit animal and why? Well, I want to preface this answer by saying I don't want to disrespect any other folks' belief system, especially with my lack of knowledge or understanding of exactly what spirit animals are. I mean, I've heard that term, but I'm not schooled on it. So all I can go by is, when I'm asked that question, let me think about what animal I relate to or something. What their traits are that I might share. I don't know if that's what it is exactly. And what came to mind is that I have at times told people I must have been a hummingbird in a previous life because I love sugar. Love sugar. You can keep all your salty snacks. I don't need chips. I don't need pretzels. I don't need any of that. But pedophores, French pastries, yeah, I'm your gal. So I say I might have been a hummingbird. And another thing is that they kind of, flit around, and they move here, they move there, and I've moved around a lot in my life, and I change direction a bit. I'll do this for a while, and then I'll stop and I'll do that for a while. So I've often, kind of said I must have been a hummingbird in my previous life, so I'm going to go with hummingbird. So that's my answer there. And then my last two questions are just about preferences. And as simple as they sound, they were actually really hard. I still can't answer one of them completely, but they are from Mauricio. Is it Mauricio? Mauricio? Lara. And it's, what's your favorite song and what's your favorite movie? I would say that my all-time favorite movie is probably Steel Magnolias. It's a female ensemble cast. I enjoy that kind of movie. It had Julia Roberts, Sally Fields, Olympia Dukakis, Daryl Hannah, and Shirley MacLaine. Oh, and Dolly Parton. and it was taking place, the movie took place in Louisiana, which I've lived in Louisiana, and it was sad, tragic, funny, all of that, you know. In fact, one of the reasons I call it my favorite movie is because I quote things from that movie a lot. And so when I was thinking about this, I thought one of the reasons I like it is laughter through tears, and that's one of the lines that they have in the movie. Probably my next favorite movie is Don Juan DeMarco, and when I've asked people, you know, movie talk about that, a lot of people haven't seen that movie. It stars Johnny Depp, but it also stars, he's a big Marlon Brando and Faye Dunaway. And I don't want to say a lot about that movie. I want you to go watch it. I don't want to spoil it. But basically, yeah, it's worth seeing. I had to take a break for a moment and let Eddie out. He's just been in here too long for his taste. So another one of my favorite movies is Fried Green Tomatoes, another female ensemble cast with Kathy Bates, Jessica Tandy, Mary Stuart Masterson, and Mary Louise Parker. And I love Mary Stuart Masterson. I think she should be in more movies. So if anyone knows her, tell her, make more movies. Another one of my favorite movies is Benny and June. And like Don Juan DeMarco, it has Johnny Depp in it. And like Fried Green Tomatoes, it has Mary Stuart Masterson. And I think that movie, and it also has, is it Adrian Quinn? Yeah, that's his name, I think, Adrian Quinn. I'm not good with movie star names. I had to look these up to remember their names. But I love that movie. It's masterful. And when Johnny Depp does the Buster Keaton type physical comedy, it's masterful. Both of them were great. And then I think rounding up my top 5 would be The Big Chill. Another ensemble cast, lots of different people in it. Was from the 80s, I think, and it's about college students from the 60s who had shared a house, getting together at the funeral of their buddy. I really enjoyed it. I watch it every once in a while if it's on, but I haven't seen it around in a long time. But anyway, that's my top 5. And the last question, and I saved this for last because it's really, I'm going to tell you, I think it's my most difficult, and I don't think I really have an answer, and that's what's your favorite song? Some people are really, moved by the words of a song. I'm moved by the melody, and I know that I like the composer Vivaldi. I tend to like Vivaldi's music, and being a redhead too. Vivaldi's got that going on too, and I identify as a redhead, even though age has turned my red hair blonde in the last few years. But as far as more modern, current music, I like a lot of Motown music when I was especially growing up, but I still love it. Marvin Gaye, and from the 60s and 70s. But if I had to pick 2 songs, I couldn't pick one. If I had to pick 2 songs, I was thinking about this. There's 2 songs that when they come on the radio, I turn them up. Although I mostly listen to classical radio, but if I'm listening to not classical radio, I turn them up. And they're 2 kind of odd songs. You might not think of them. They're nothing in this, these are older songs. But I would say they are Steely Dan's Ricky Don't Lose That Number and Elton John's Daniel. I love the melodies. I love those songs, the way they sound. I might even put Maggie May in there by Rod Stewart, maybe. But the other 2 are much stronger. They also remind me of things that happened in my life. And so that's one of the things I think that draws me to them as well. So I want to thank you all very much for submitting your cues. And I hope I did okay with the A's. It's my first time to answer that sort of thing. So thank you for submitting your questions, and thank you for watching my videos. Please like and subscribe, and please spay and neuter your pets.